I would now like to introduce our board chair, Allison Elliott, to introduce our very special guest for this evening.
Great. Well, I have the pleasure on behalf of SV2 partners past and present to thank two people who have been wonderful long-term friends of SV2, Rick Williams and Carol Larson. Rick and Carol are well known as leaders in philanthropy here in Silicon Valley as well as nationally. Carol as president and CEO of the David and Lucille Packard Foundation, and Rick as the CEO of the Sobrato Family Foundation. And this year, both of them are retiring. So tonight, we'd like to honor their work and extend our deep thanks for their many years of supporting SV2 and its mission. So you all realize that the Packard and Sobrato foundations are larger than SV2. But interestingly, all of us share three strong priorities in our grant making. First, the importance of multi-year unrestricted grants. As Linda mentioned, that's what SV2 does, and it's something that's all too rare in philanthropy, yet essential to help nonprofits build strong, high-impact organizations. Secondly, the critical need to support local community-based organizations here in Silicon Valley. Three, the power of collaboration and partnerships to expand impact. At SV2, we have benefited from Carol and Rick's collaboration and support in so many ways. At various points, the Packard Foundation has provided critical funding to help build SV2's organizational strength. For example, most recently, they helped to fund SV2's CEO search. And grants from the Sobrato Family Foundation have been invaluable in helping SV2 to grow. And of course, all of us at SV2 also enjoy our beautiful home in the Redwood Shores Sobrato Center, thanks to the Sobrato Family Foundation's commitment to provide nonprofits with space at below market rents. Throughout their tenures, both Rick and Carol have generously shared their wisdom with SV2's leadership, Jen Rattay, Linda Laser, and past board chairs. And Rick and their foundations have shared knowledge and expertise in grant rounds like economic opportunity, education, and the environment as SV2 funder allies. Unfortunately, Carol was not able to be here with us tonight. She had a family situation that came up, but we are delighted that Rick has joined us. Rick has led the Sobrato Family Foundation's commitment to make Silicon Valley a place of opportunity for all residents by expanding access to high-quality education, career pathways, and essential human services. Here in the Valley, where the deep divide between the comfortable and the struggling continues to persist, Rick has inspired and supported our learning, helping us to understand the systems that stand in the way of change, and showing us how we can continue to take action to help advance that change. So please join me in thanking Rick for all he has done for SV2 and for Silicon Valley.
Those that know me know that's like the hardest part of tonight. But it is actually absolutely a pleasure to be here tonight. I'm going to make sure I'm speaking loud enough. I'm the one that is retired. Carol's working on that. And so I would say right from the beginning that it took a request from Linda and it took a request from SV2 to make me come out and put on a jacket. I haven't had on for quite a while. And I say that because if you look at those slides that were presented, that's kind of how I decide, that's how I try very hard to live my work as running the Serato Family Foundation. And it just amazes me that we now have SV2 and all of you that are going to become evangelists for the same kind of message. And I think that message can resonate here, and there's a lot that we can do. So I'll talk about that real quickly. I only have a few minutes. They want me to impart some words of wisdom. I don't know. I can talk to you about, bobsledding and whistling and other stuff that I've been doing lately. But I will share a little bit of what I know. I've been in philanthropy. I started my philanthropy journeys in 2001. And so at that point, I became the National Program Director of the Charles and Helen Schwab Foundation. And that really launched what for me was an amazing journey, an amazing career to how do you help families particularly, which is most of my work has been with, engage in communities in a different way, engage with each other, their networks, in a way that opens opportunities, creates opportunities for people that have been left behind. And it's been an amazing ride. I've had the pleasure to do philanthropy locally, at a state level, and at a national level. I had the pleasure to do philanthropy on Indian reservations in the Deep South, and the North and South. So every corner of the United States, I've had the opportunity to do that. And over my time, I'm trying to figure out how much money I've given out over those years. I really can't, but it's significant. And I think it's not about the money, it's about what has been done. And in each of those cases, we've left behind doors for people to follow us. And so I'm going to give you about 3 things that I would share with you about what I would hope you would think about in your giving, and then a couple things about how you do your giving. But Linda, I think, captured most of my talking points on the slides because they were very relevant. So clearly, if you look at Silicon Valley, the top pressing needs really quickly that everyone knows is the lack of affordable housing and the lack of a modern transportation infrastructure. So there's going to be a lot of philanthropic dollars put into that and a lot of government dollars put into that, and that goes without saying. That's where it should be. I would add a third to that top tier list, and that is education. Most people, when they start a foundation, they get in to do education. And I don't begrudge them that. In this region, one of the wealthiest regions in the country, we need to work on our educational infrastructure. It is not working for all kids in our community, and it should be second to none. So I would think, you look at those 3, education, housing, and transportation, those are the big 3. If you want to make Silicon Valley the place that we all want it to be, those are the things to look at. So I'm not going to talk about those. And I'm not going to talk about art, I'm not going to talk about environment, all those things I'm passionate about. There are a lot of great things for you to put your money to. I'm going to talk about things that people rarely talk about when they give these discussions. And I hope I just leave with you an opportunity to think about these things in a way that when you're thinking about your giving, you kind of remember, oh, well, Rick said this and it may spark something. I would ask that in addition to all those great things, and I'm very much a believer in that it's an and situation. It's not or. You can do this and that. There's opportunities to do that. That we focus our energy on thinking about how we can develop vibrant, diverse, and sustainable communities. That you think about how your money can do that. I think we're in a real, we talk about an environmental crisis, we're in a real community crisis. We're in a real neighbor-to-neighbor crisis. And so anything you can do with your funding that really helps communities be their better selves, I would urge you to think about. We're in a point right now where, depending on where you live, what zip code you live in, and sadly, the value of the house you were raised in, will determine how healthy you are, your economic progress, what kind of job you get, and many other factors in life. We need to try to break that. I'm not suggesting what kind of grant you give or what kind of resource you give, but we need to try to break that and develop communities that are going to work for everyone. So I just would urge you to think about communities as you think about the other areas that you're giving. The other thing I would do, and I know there's some providers here, and I hope this will resonate with them, but for you as you're thinking about your giving as well, one of the things that I had the most fun doing was being an amplifier of voices. Taking my voice and my platform and my resources to amplify what's doing. I would urge you to the extent that you can, and this is what I've learned over all these years of philanthropy, is to be an amplifier for community voices and grassroots organizations that are trying to work on structural and systemic barriers. They're trying to break down structural and systemic barriers. They don't get enough funding, they don't get enough recognition, they're usually small organizations, but they have their ear to the ground in no way, in a way that we just will never have anymore. It was always important for me to get out of my office and go talk with organizations that were doing that kind of work so that I remain grounded, and it helped my grant making. So to the extent that you can engage with these organizations, you don't have to fund all of them, but listen to them, and, hear them, trust them, support them. That's going to be how things are going to change in your communities, and our communities are going to get better. The last, in terms of the what, that I would share with you is, and Linda touched on it a little bit. It's not an area that I have ever funded, but it's been one that's on my mind lately. And I've had a lot of conversation with Larry Kramer Hewlett and others that have these particular projects. Think about areas that protect our democracy. To the extent that it is voter rights, speech, getting people access, you should not, and fortunately we don't have that here, but you should not have to wait 4 hours to vote in a particular community. So things that you can do with your resources, with your platforms, with your network, that just protect democracy. Doesn't matter what side you're on, that's an irrelevant conversation. Our democracy is still a test, and we are still trying to figure it out. It's only a couple hundred years old. It is the longest ever, but it's still a test. And we forget that it's a test, and we think it's going to last forever. We need to be mindful of that and not let that go. So with those are the whats, let me real quickly, because I know my time is running out, to give you a couple things on the how that I think I found helpful, and I hope that you find helpful. One of the how is don't be afraid to take risks in your philanthropy. Philanthropy, as has been said, should be the VC capital for social enterprise. I think we've moved a little bit away from that, trying to work on logic models and everything else, which I'm okay with and I'm actually supportive of. But there needs to be a little bit of heart, a little bit of belief, a little bit of passion in our work. And sometimes you just have to do something because you think this is the right thing to do for the community or for the people you're trying to serve. So don't be afraid to take a risk, and stay in the game for a while. Unlike building a product, changing human life and human direction will take a significant amount of time, and so you can't do it in a year or two. You're going to have to stay in the game. Then want to build trusting partnerships with the community. I think one of the some of the most important grants I gave were ones to very small organizations that I just had a relationship with. We come in way too often, and I try to always check myself to make sure I didn't do that, but we come in way too often thinking we know how to solve this problem, or we know how to do this, or we know how to do that. I urge you to lead with trust, and lead with understanding, and lead with respect that they've been living this stuff and working this stuff for a long time. And what they need from you is your expertise and what you bring, but they need it in a collaborative way, not as a, what have you been doing, you're doing this wrong. And then finally, I would add that be optimistic. I think what I tried to do very much during my time is to make sure that people never forgot where we could go if we put our mind to it. There's so much negativity out there. You are in a blessed place, and SV2, what you do, and the people that are here and the people that aren't here, and your funder colleagues are in a unique place that we get to be the people that tell the good story all the time. And we don't do that enough. We don't actually tell our story very well at all. And a lot of people have heard me speak, tell it. I do a whole talk about that. And so people don't really understand what we do. So I would urge you, be optimistic, and in doing that, be transparent with your work. Be happy, be in a mindful that you believe that this vision is attainable. Because if you don't believe it, no one will believe it, and we won't achieve what we want to do. So that's a little bit of wisdom I've had over the last 18 years or so. And I really appreciate you guys being here, and thank you so much. You guys are leaving the breadcrumbs for the people that are coming behind, and I think that the community is going to be a better place. The community that we love can be better, and it's all because you're gonna show the way. So thank you very, very much.